Building a microservices, what are the things we need to take care? So this is the motivation of microservices. And while we develop a microservices, we need a microservices architecture. So that architecture style, what are the architecture styles we will follow to create a microservices? And microservices will be have a loose couple, independent deployment, and organized into a smaller team, so that all the teams members will be developed independently and create a microservices for the microservices architecture style. So this is the challenges while we are developing a microservices: decomposition of monolithic application into the microservices, configuration management, discovering the service, resiliency patterns, transaction security, availability, monitoring, and tracing. So while we are developing the microservices, these all are the challenges which need to be taken care to develop a microservice. Then decomposition. So the business capability and domain driven design which we have to follow while we develop microservices for the decomposition. Configuration management, like centralized configurations we will follow. Eliminate configuration drift. Options have we have a Spring Cloud config server that we can use for the central configuration, and Kubernetes config map that also we can use. Here discovery server, like enable load balancers, allow horizontal scaling of microservice, monitor health of each microservice, and keep a pool of healthy microservices. Options, what are the options we have for discovering microservice like a Spring Cloud, Eureka server, and Kubernetes ingress services. Transactions, while we need transactions, like do not provide a consistency, prefer AP over C in the CAP theorem. Eventually consistency using sagas, and database is split across the multiple microservices for the transaction pattern. Resiliency patterns prevent falling of downstream API, allow bulkhead, provide time of failing service to recover, can optionally send a fallback implementation. So options we have a resilience forge server and ISTIO service mesh. Security, we can use token based security authentication, OAuth 2 I used. Availability, like API gateways, common entry point assigned to the domain name, rate limit, enforcing policy, aggregators. So options we can use like a Spring Cloud API gateway, Kubernetes ingress, ISTIO service mesh. That three options we have that we can use for the availability of API gateways. Monitoring and traceability, like tracing HTTP request, aggregate the logs for central server, set up monitor and alerting mechanism. Options we can have a Sleuth and Jepkin, ELK, and ISTO server mesh. So these are all three options through that we can monitoring and tracing the microservices. Deployment will have a blue-green deployment, canary deployment, and rolling deployment. So options we have a Kubernetes deployment and ISTIO. So these all are the things we need to follow while we develop a micro